Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name's Lefebvre, and today we're going to be painting a watercolor pumpkin patch. So let's jump in and get started. Okay friends, today I thought it would be fun to paint a pumpkin patch landscape. So I haven't actually done this before, kind of winging it here, but we're gonna just let loose and have some fun. So the first thing I want to do is pick my horizon line. And before I do that, I am painting in my handmade watercolor sketchbook. It has 100% cotton cold press watercolor paper. I just have this book underneath because it's a hardcover and I need something to keep it up. I just taped off a nice border with some washi tape. I have my Shinhan watercolors with me. I have a flat wash brush for the background for the sky. Then I also have this size 8 round brush. And I also have this really fun deer foot brush that's perfect for trees. I did do a tutorial with this brush, and I'm going to use it again because I absolutely love it for trees. And I think that's about it. Water, paper towel, and we're ready to start. Okay, so if you would like to, you can grab a pencil and just draw your horizon line. What I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna wet up the background of where I want my horizon. We're gonna do the sky first and some of the background trees. So I always like to wet it up first just because it's a lot easier for blending. And then I'm going to do kind of like a grayish blue sky. So I have a blue here, but I'm gonna grab a little bit of ultramarine, I think. I'm gonna grab a little bit of brown. That neutralizes it a bit. So ultramarine and brown. And it creates this kind of misty blue if it's a little bit more on the ultramarine side. And I just want it to be kind of like a gray day in the pumpkin patch, okay? Gonna go all the way down to our horizon line like so. Might make it a little bit darker towards the top like that. And then while it's still wet, I'm gonna take my deerfoot brush and probably use my size 8 round, and I'm gonna put in some trees while it's still wet so they look like they're out of focus. I'm actually gonna use a little bit of this Cascade green for some of the trees. It's a fun color, and I'm just kind of dabbing it on my paper towel a bit, and I'm just gonna dab it like that. I just want a little bit of green, not a lot. I'm gonna grab a little bit of, let's do some yellow and like orange. You probably don't even need this brush for it. You could just do this with a regular brush. A little bit of yellow in there. We're just going to have like a nice array of fall kind of trees in the background. A little bit of red, orange, maybe some burnt sienna. And I just love the little dots this brush gives you. But I think I actually might, because it's wet on wet, I might just use my size 8. We'll save that brush for another. Okay. Grab a little bit more yellow. We're just doing these lovely fall trees on the wet surface in the background. I actually don't know if I like that green that I use, the Cascade green. I feel like it's maybe more of a wintry color. So I might just take some olive green, which is a bit more, I feel like a fall green, go over it there. There we go. These could even be evergreen trees. Just some tall, spiky evergreen trees in the back. And you're doing this while it's still wet. I'm gonna grab a little bit of yellow ochre, a little bit of brown. Yeah, this works better than that deerfoot brush just for the wet on wet trees. But if you are curious about that brush, check out the tutorial because it is absolutely like so much fun. Maybe a little bit of purple in here too. Why not? A little bit of darkness. Just mixing all the fun fall colors. But it's a lot of fun for trees. And we're just dabbing until I get kind of like this background that I like. Okay. I'm gonna grab one more shade of like a darker green. Just do a little bit of shadow on some of these. Just so it's not all one bright green. Like that. All right, and I think that looks good. I'm just gonna use my brush just to kind of smush some of these, blend them together like that. Okay. Then I actually want to grab a little bit of darker brown, and I'm just going to kind of just add a little bit of dark brown to the base, just so it looks like there's tree trunks and a bit of shadow closer to the horizon. You don't actually have to draw the tree trunks of the trees. You might want to do like little vertical lines, just like a little bit. But I'm mostly just trying to make it a little bit darker closest to the horizon line. Okay. I'm just gonna smooth that out a little bit. All right. There we go. Now we can start placing in our pumpkins. So I'm going to put the pumpkins in first, and then I'm going to place in like the grass and everything around it. So I'm going to start by doing some of the pumpkins that are up close first. So they're a bit bigger. So I'm going to grab a little bit of like an orangey color. And we're just making loose pumpkins. This is not a realistic painting, loose pumpkins. So I'm just going to do a circle here, like that. Make it kind of lumpy. Grab a little bit of darker orange, darken one side. I'm not even doing like how I do my loose pumpkins. I'm just kind of grasping the shape. Now it's a little too like yellow, I find. So I'm just going to try and blend it in together a bit. Mix a little bit more orange. There. Like so. Maybe I have one that's kind of on its side over here. It's a little bit longer. Grab a little bit of that darker orange again. Remember, this is loose, so it does not have to be perfect. Might even grab a little bit of like, what's it called? Green? What's it called? You know, that color, green. Like they're not fully turned. A little bit of darkness, just where the stem is going to be. Like that. Maybe I'll do another one over here. So we have 3 that are kind of up close. Like that. Okay, and then make that a little bit darker. That, grab a little bit of yellow, brighten it up a bit. Like that. And then as they start to go further back, they're going to get smaller, right? The further away something is, the smaller it is. The closer it is to us, the bigger it is. So they might not even be like full circles because I want to have some of the ground kind of coming up in front of them. So if it's not like a perfect circle, don't worry. I am going to try, here, I want to create more of an orange. Hold on. I just realized you probably can't see my palette. There we go. Okay, I'm trying to create more of an orange. Like that. And then I'm going to grab some burnt sienna and add some shadows like that. You can do some of the lines if you'd like. You can do it while it's wet, or you can wait until it's dry. This is very loose. I'm just doing it like super, super loose. Okay. I'm gonna do another one back here. So it's gonna get smaller. Maybe do another one kind of like right beside it. A little bit of yellow. Got a little bit of brown. And just kind of embrace the bumpiness of them too. We are going to do stems on them after. Okay, maybe there's like a half of one over here. Do a longer one over here. And I'm just adding some of the darker color towards the base of it. Grabbing a little bit of that brown. Like that. And then just continue to kind of move back. That's brown. Okay, hold on. And we're just going to continue to make them smaller and smaller as we get further back. Maybe there's more back here, so you can make them a bit more dense, like where there's like little clusters of pumpkins. And they're just going to have less and less detail too. Like they're barely even circles. Okay, and now I'm going to grab just like a little bit of brown. I might add my orange. Just going to add some shadow to the bottoms of them. Like that. Sorry, this keeps turning on me. Very loosely. If there's two side by side, I might just separate them with that shadow. Like that. Okay. Then I might want to just, some of them are looking like a little bit flatter. So if I want to go in with just like a bit more detail or shadow, I can do that. Don't know if I like that, but that's okay. Just adding a little bit more orange to it. Okay. Okay. All right, then we're going to start placing in the ground in between it. Okay, we are going to do a little bit more detail on these pumpkins and like the stem and all that after, but I want to get the ground in there first. So I'm going to take, just to start, like a light wash of green. It's going to be like a mix of green and browns. And I'm just going to start loosely painting it in between. And I'm going to actually try and use this like a lot of water because I want it to stay wet as long as possible so I can drop in more color. So if I use a decent amount of water as I'm laying this in, it will stay wet longer. even if they're puddles, that's okay. Like I'm going right from my water right into the space. Okay, and while I'm doing that, if you want to, start tapping in some green. And remember, it's not all green, so there's like brown. We're going to do some shadows on the pumpkins too. But if you want to start tapping in some color while you're placing the water, you definitely can do that too. So I'm just laying this water on thickly in between the pumpkins. I'm just adding a bit more water to any areas that might look a little drier. So yeah, my biggest tip is just to use lots of water for this part while you're laying in that ground. Just gives you more time to go back in and touch it up with color. Because if I go in with lots of color trying to do the background in between the pumpkins right now, and I don't use that much water, but I use like an intense amount of color that I want to lay there, it's going to start looking like really splotchy because it's going to start drying. So using that amount of water is really going to help it stay wet longer. And I'm not worrying too much about the color. I'm just worrying about how much water I have in there. So when I'm done, most of that water has sunk in and it's not really puddles. Like when I was placing it here, there were puddles, but there's no puddles anymore. It's just still wet. So now I can go back in. I'm going to grab some of my olive green, maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. So it's like a olivey green. I'm going to start tapping it in there. Now the pumpkin patch it's not very green. Like if you actually look, or at least the ones I've seen, the ground is not very green. A lot of it's mud. So this depiction of a green grassy pumpkin patch is not necessarily realistic, but it looks pretty. So I will add in a little bit of mud and stuff too, like the brown. But I just want to get some of these brighter greens in first. Like that. Okay, then I'm going to grab my burnt sienna. And I'm going to start, you can add in some shadows. If you want, you can kind of pick which side the shadow or the sun is coming from and then do all like a bunch of brown on the pumpkins, kind of adding the shadow or the shading to that one side. So I picked this right side and all the shadow is on this side. Okay. See that? Now, some of these have really lost their roundness, but again, it's loose. It's not realistic. It's okay. Add a little bit of brown in between too. I might add a little bit of indigo brown to my brown, so it's a little bit more dark and cooler of a brown. So we have both that like really nice burnt sienna brown, but then a darker, more intense brown with the mix with the indigo. See that? Just kind of gives it a bit more shadow and depth. When you add the darker brown. And I'm just tapping it. And I'm also going around the pumpkins on the right side, just like smoothing it out so they're a bit more rounded. Like that. Then I'm gonna grab just like one of my brushes that has a really good point. If I can find one. Yeah, this brush has a good point. And I'm gonna take my green, maybe a little bit of a darker green too. And just because this has a good point, I can do really fine lines. I'm gonna do, just while it's still wet, some of the vines. Now obviously they're kind of, because it's still wet, they're bleeding out and they're not very, what's it called? Sharp. But I kind of like that. We can go back and do sharper ones after. I just like this kind of texture of these vines all throughout. Kind of just going around some of the tops of the pumpkins where there's white space too, and just adding a little bit of this dark green. Can act like some leaves. Like that. Okay, and then we're gonna let those dry. Now, that deerfoot brush that I was talking about, I kind of want to do a little bit more detail on the trees back there. And this is the brush that I was talking about for that. That's kind of like perfect. So I'm going to grab a little bit of yellow, a little bit of orange, just tap a little bit on my paper towel and just do a little bit more texture. Because now that it's dry, we can get a little bit more defined texture with this brush. See that? Just a little bit. You don't need to overdo it or anything. A little bit of brown. It works better when you have a bit more room to really do the texture properly and like bigger trees where you can see it a bit more. It's a little hard just because it's such a blunt, like big edge or like flat kind of brush. It's hard to get the smaller details that I want, but it still gives such great texture. I love this brush. Okay, like that. Okay, I don't want to go too much into it. And then I'm just going to take my size 8 and I'm just going to do just like a little bit more like strokes on the green trees, just to give those a bit more of a detailed look or a textured look, a little bit more darkness. Just while we're waiting for the pumpkins to dry. And then I'm gonna grab my really nice pointed brush again. I'm gonna grab some brown and I'm just gonna do some tree trunks throughout some of the trees. The key to a more realistic looking tree is to get really thin tree trunks and branches. Okay. I find it's when your tree trunks are too thick, they tend to look a little less realistic. So having a good brush with a nice point really helps. You don't need to do too much detail. This is supposed to be in the background. Okay. I could draw trees forever though. It's like one of my favorite things to do. Do some of them that are clustered together, little branches throughout them. Like that. If you need to do any more little kind of textured bits on the trees that you might feel like you missed. You can always do that with a different brush as well. Just dabbing. Like that. Okay, now these are pretty much dry. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to start doing little stems on the pumpkins now that it's dry. So I'm just creating a darker brown with my burnt sienna and my indigo. And I'm going to do stems on some of these pumpkins. And they're all going to be like facing different ways. Maybe you're seeing the butt of a pumpkin here. Okay, so it's just like a dot at the bottom. Some of these you're just seeing little dots. Some of them you're actually seeing the stems. That. It's turning on me. And if any of these ones that you really kind of feel like you want to make a little bit more, I don't know, detailed, like actually drawing some of the sections on the pumpkin, if you want to do that, you can. You don't have to. I don't know why I like this brush better right now. I'm going to take a little bit more of my dark brown. I'm just going to do an extra little, maybe a bit more indigo just so it's darker. And I'm just going to do extra little shadow on some of these. Nothing too intense, but like maybe a bit of dry brush. So I'm just kind of skimming it. See that? And the way I do dry brush is I just don't add water to my brush. I put my brush on its side and I just light pressure skim across the side of the page. Okay, and it just keeps getting more and more dry. And then grabbing my green, I can do some of those vines for the pumpkins, maybe some like big juicy leaves coming off of them. They twist, they turn. Okay. Some can be like in front of the pumpkins. You can cover up some of the white spaces like that too, just like by like dabbing little bits of green. Like that. Just gonna dry brush back here a bit. Maybe a little bit of brown too. A little bit of texture. And I think that's about it. We might just add like a little bird in the sky for fun. Like that. Maybe another one. Like that. And I think that's about it. So there is our fun pumpkin patch scene. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on all my other platforms for tons more content. Have a great day, guys. Bye.